Listen,
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
we talk about it every day.
Can't get enough baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right, there's no human being on the planet I'd rather be talking to right now than Adam Bloebaum. Fact. The most interesting man in the minor league in all of minor league baseball. That's how I'm going to phrase it, Adam. I am proclaiming that. So, congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, Adam, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I came across your story, which I think is a testament to the great medium of podcasting. I was listening to podcast Bat Flips and Nerds with Kyle Bodie, who obviously is one of the head honcho, if not the head honcho of Driveline.
Yep.
I found the conversation really, really interesting. And within the conversation with those guys, there was just a quick mention of you. But what struck me was, and we have a minor leaguer who we have basically tasked with figuring out blah, blah, blah. And so we're going to explain blah, blah, blah in a second. But I immediately thought, wait a second, Driveline has all these people and obviously doing great work. And this is very unique, has to be unique, that they're contracting or utilizing an active minor league baseball player to do some very, very, very interesting work for them. And it's not just go out and throw a baseball and you be our guinea pig. I mean, that's not what it's about. So I'm just telling you, that's where I heard your name. And so I'm so happy that I got a chance to talk to you. So thank you for coming on. And you're at Driveline right now, right? Correct?
I am. I'm in the Seattle location right now until I ship out for spring training. But yeah, I think it's a really special overlap, and I'm actually not the only one here. There's a Mets minor leaguer named Josh Hedgeko who does a lot of software stuff for us and has been in AA and AAA. But this is exactly the kind of place where you'd find more than one of us.
It's amazing, though. Like, this is, I think the whole Driveline thing is fascinating anyway, but it's amazing that what they've done, but also that they're utilizing you and Josh to say, hey, listen, you're in the mix of it. You're in the middle of this stuff. You have an interest in this stuff. You're smart guys. That's the important part. And not to get on like my stool in the middle of the clubhouse, Adam, but I'm just telling you, that's what's important, is to have a lot of smart people come from a lot of different angles. And what is a more unique angle than having a smart person like yourself currently in the minor league say, hey, listen, I want to dig in on this. And again, we're going to talk about what you're digging in on. I'm just talking surface level right now. So
right.
Yeah. I think it's cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty special to be able to be on both sides of it. I was a trainee here for 2 years, and now I'm in my second year of working here. But when I look around the office, a lot of our best employees were also trainees here. So you got to know the game, got to know the ins and outs of it. But to be able to sort of pick your pool of applicants and find smart people just from training them, I think is really impressive.
And obviously you go through the training and you all of a sudden, you want to know more. That's what I would imagine they're like. They can identify someone who really wants to know more, who has the ability to uncover things, has somewhat of a background too in this stuff. All right. So I've yapped enough. I want you to tell your path so I don't miss anything. I could take a stab at it, but I'll probably miss something. But I want you to tell your path, because just on its own, right now you're in the national system as a minor leaguer. Just on its own, it's a really, really interesting path. but just take me through sort of how you got to become a minor league baseball player.
Yeah, I think it's fairly hard to follow the paper trail. But I'll start just with my college career. I played very briefly at the University of Pittsburgh, and that was the COVID year. And then ended up at the University of Washington out in Seattle, and then played for 2 years. Had like some mixed success, but then actually chose to like take a year off completely and not play my senior year. I was really committed to wanting to playing professional baseball. And then ended up in indie ball. I played in Grand Junction in the Pioneer League in 2023. Was still trying to get an affiliate job. I threw in Driveline's Pro Day twice. Made a website for myself and was DMing people on LinkedIn. Everyone that I could find that was affiliated with an org. And then actually started in 2024 in indie ball in the Frontier League. And then just this crazy random chance. We need pitchers. We need guys that can throw strikes at the lower levels. Do you have any guys? And ended up at the complex in West Palm. And then from there, was healthy and was able to play well and, just continuing to climb the ladder.
When they asked that question, when the National asked that question, are they asking the independent league team? Are they asking the people at Driveline? Did they remember you from your pro day? Because if you go to your baseball reference page, it's like the numbers aren't jumping off the page. That's listen, you've accomplished a lot, but this is another example of perseverance and also of finding unique ways to sort of get in the conversation, which you did. So what was the thing that the Nationals latched onto when they said, all right, we'll take you?
I think it was just a personal relationship between my agent and the farm director. I do think the Pioneer League's situated very uniquely by playing at elevation where the pitching numbers look really bad. I had like a 6.5 ERA, but that was like over 2 runs lower than like the league average. So that takes a lot of explaining, and you can put it in terms of like ERA plus or whatever. But a scout doesn't want to sit there and listen to you to flesh out all the numbers. But I think I had enough quality footage. I was young enough. I was just good enough at baseball that this personal relationship my agent had. They expressed a need, and I was the guy to fill the job. So I really look back at that time of sending 250 DMs to people trying to get signed, trying to do everything, and it ended up being just some luck occurrence of a need and having an arm that was available.
All right, so now we're going to go back to the Driveline path. You did an excellent job of explaining that. It was even better, more unique than I thought. So, but now we go to Driveline path where, like you said, you latched on to Driveline as part of, I want to become a professional baseball player, and I hear this place is pretty good in regards to getting guys to that level. Take me through when you made that decision, what the decision looked like, what that commitment looked like, what the process was once you got there.
As a like trainee specifically, or also as like
right,
an employee?
Sure. Like that's when your first introduction to Driveline, like you go through the program as a trainee, and then you have your pro day. So you're one of a lot of people there.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess going back to summer of 2021, it was actually very convenient that I went to the University of Washington because I was faced with, okay, do I go play summer ball or, do I train and get better? But this is 20 minutes down the road. I don't have to pack up my life and move. So I did that for 2 summers. And then I was kind of looking at like my career. I had like a very subpar junior year, was fairly like unhappy, was trying to just get better and keep improving, but it just wasn't happening. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm willing to not play my senior year. I'm willing to just like commit to individual development to try and give myself a shot. So it was definitely a bit of like betting on myself. And I go into pro day the first time, and I do think Driveline does a very good job of having a high quality in the pro day. You're not going to go out there and see like just anyone. So I do feel very lucky that, yeah, I was one of a few dozen guys, but there were eyes there, and the eyes that were there, like, knew that who they were going to be there was of high quality.
You had a good day. You had a good day there, because
I think
yeah. Go ahead.
I think both times I've thrown fine. Like, not anything like unreasonable that I couldn't ask of myself, but certainly not like career days. And then from that, just got a lot of indie ball interest. Ended up just graduating in 23, going to play, and then I'm back in it again. I'm, have a year of indie ball under my belt. The numbers on paper don't look very good, even though I pitched quite well.
But your stuff,
thing.
Not to interrupt, but your stuff from your work at Driveline, could you tell the difference?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that people don't realize is it's not like a silver bullet or like a quick fix. Where you really see the dividends is committing to something like month over month, year over year, that I think of the things I did 3 years ago, and that really like set the foundation for like the gains that I see now. So it was much more of like, can't just show up for like a month or two and expect to really see improvements. But the fact that I had been sort of training like in the system for 2, 3, 4 years, you really get to build a lot of like momentum.
So you go through there and it works out. While you're there, is that when sort of your interest and were you the guy who was constantly asking the questions? Were you the guy who said, hey, I know how this works, but I really want to know how this works? Were you the guy that said, I think that we can do things a little bit differently, or I want to become the guy who finds a way to do it differently? Like, when did that part of it start to sort of percolate?
Yeah, I think growing up, I'd always sort of, loving baseball and then loving science and math, had always seen the crossover and always been really curious in it. But I don't think until I physically got in the gym that I was like, wow, like there are a ton of resources devoted to this, and you can like really, really do a lot of cool research, a lot of cool building of projects and exploration of things. And I'd had a few conversations with staff members while I was a trainee, just like asking questions if they had any like resources on like books I should read, or how to like steer my education in a way that would like equip me with the tools to come into the industry. But it wasn't until fall of 23 where I really had like the opportunity to become an employee. And that was again sort of like a luck occurrence, because I'd applied previously for an internship, didn't get it. And then this time around, didn't apply because I was like, well, they didn't want me the last time. And the only thing I've done since I last applied is play independent professional baseball. And they end up reaching out and having a need. And I've really been able to like take the opportunity, which I'm so grateful for, and like turn it into like continued employment and really doing cool stuff.
Okay, so speaking of the cool stuff, now this is the third path, the path to the cool stuff, the path to Kyle Bodie mentioning you on a podcast specifically, saying, "Hey, we're tasking Adam with this." Like, that's anytime anyone's tasking anyone with anything, it's a good thing, right? Talk to me about what you're being tasked with, what ultimately had led you to that mention by Kyle of saying, we're looking at this stuff and we're really, really like, this is one of the guys who's helping us do it.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to listen to that podcast, but I think I'd be amiss to not mention that it's really me and my best friend, Clayton Thompson, who also works for Driveline part-time, that the two of us together as a team, we head up all of Driveline's computer vision initiatives. And if you're not familiar with computer vision, it's pretty much a subcategory of artificial intelligence where you're pretty much teaching computers essentially how to see, how to process image and video data So we train a lot of models, we develop a lot of data pipelines, we do all sorts of things involving computer vision.
Okay, so with computer vision being like this is dumb me, but I think I speak for all the people out there who aren't familiar with this stuff, who want to learn.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why, honestly, when I listened to the interview with Kyle, I was really intrigued that he's talking about what's the next thing, what's the next great thing, where things are going. So tell me when you're looking at computer vision. I can talk about the traject machine, fine. I mentioned that 50 million times on podcasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we're moving past that. Talk to me about what you're diving into with computer vision and how it's going to impact or how do you think it's going to impact the future of baseball?
Yeah, I think not just baseball, but in real life, it's going to become very, very prevalent in all walks of life. I think, especially as like compute costs and computing costs and GPUs and stuff like that become more and more accessible, you're going to see it just about everywhere. And in terms of baseball, we already see it in these Hawkeye biomechanics systems. That the way that they extract any of the biomechanics data is all through pose estimation, which is essentially running inference of a computer vision model and extracting key points, whether it's the elbow, the knee, the hip, whatever. So it's already in professional baseball. All of the biomechanical insights that teams derive from in-game data uses computer vision. But I think this aligns with what Kyle talks about, that we really don't know the impact this is going to have because we're on the edge of it. We've never done it before. Nobody's an expert. Anyone that claims to be an expert for something that's only been around for a year or two is not on the right path. So I think that's almost the hardest part is ideating on like, how do we want to apply these things? We had a great meeting with a company called Moondream AI, where essentially you can feed it an image and prompt it, and it will answer a question regarding like what's in the image. And we're meeting with them. And it's like, how do we best apply this? What are the use cases for this? So whether it's tracking a bat, tracking a ball, tracking a pitch, biomechanics, bat speeds, even in the weight room of rep tracking and range of motion, the possibilities for applying these models is pretty endless.
So let me ask you this. Because you're explaining it very well, but I want to make sure like that I'm on the right track in terms of this is how this might be impact. So I'm sorry, what was the company? Moondream?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Moondream. So you give the biomechanic data, you give the all the data to them. A guy hitting, a guy pitching, a guy lifting, and you say, what is he doing right and what is he doing wrong? I know I'm super simplifying this. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'm trying to get my head around it.
Yeah, I think it's really just the separation between like data collection and like data analysis.
Mm-hmm.
That everything with computer vision is deals with like data collection. Like, how do I get the data by just an image or a video to then use for analysis with biomechanics or sprint speed or whatever it may be. The data analysis is nothing novel. It's nothing new. But being able to just like take an image of someone and ask a model like, which direction is this person facing? For example, we have a side view camera setup, and we have one on each side, but we don't really want to turn them on and off depending on which side of the hitter is hitting. What you can do is you can just feed an image to Moondream and be like, is this person have their back to the camera or not? And it'll answer with really surprisingly accuracy. And then all of a sudden we know that like we don't have to process that video because it's on the wrong side. Mm-hmm. So as far as like biomechanics and like Hawkeye and stuff, the principles of doing all the math and the physics and stuff to get the biomechanics, that's the exact same. But when I have a guy in baseball pants, when I have a guy in a baggy jersey from 200 feet away pitching in Game 6 of the World Series, if I want to be able to get like any of his biomechanics data, I need to be able to like apply a pose estimation model and essentially reconstruct almost like a digital 3-dimensional skeleton.
So how do you think all this work you're doing, and a lot of it sounds like it's a work in progress, but still we're 365 days from now, we're going to be like, maybe say, oh yeah, of course, this is all stuff, right? And this is how it works. It happens so quick. So how do you think it's going to impact actually playing professional baseball, Major League Baseball? How do you think that what you're doing now will ultimately impact the players on Major League teams? And the obvious question with a lot of this stuff, and I think Kyle talked about this, is, this injury epidemic. Like, it have an impact of that? Will have an impact of guys throwing harder? Well, how is this going to impact Major League Baseball, you think, ultimately?
Yeah. I think the biggest area I see is accessibility. Everyone's got an iPhone, but not everyone can afford to have like all of the latest, greatest player development tech, whether it's a HitTrax or a TrackMan or whatever it is. So I almost see the biggest benefit of like increasing accessibility for player development, for data-driven feedback. And that's what we've seen the first round of, just applying it generally, that the players get a lot better, that everyone now has access to these tools, whether it's going back to just good strength and conditioning programming or to weighted balls or whatever it may be. But if everyone has access to it just from your phone, that I can take a video of me doing something and someone's got a product that uses computer vision that can help me get better, then all of a sudden the level of play and the skill level continues to rise. So I think like a decade from now, when you have a generation of kids that have hopefully are growing up with this being commonplace, that, hey, I can take a video of me throwing and it'll give me a full biomechanics report. I think you'll see just the level of play continue to rise.
So another part of this, and this as a professional baseball player, is the distribution of information and the implementation of information.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest challenges when you talk even about surface level analytics, even things as simple as shifts. When I remember when shifts was becoming such a big thing, and pitchers, they had to convince pitchers that this was a good idea. How challenging is this going to be to delivering to the players? Because Adam, some players, information overload is a problem, right?
Right.
So you have a great perspective of this.
Yeah. And I would say until about 2022, I was one of those guys. I was way overthinking, analytical, could not separate the like calculated, thought out thought process from just like the competitor athletic thought process. And I think in an ideal world, what this does, or what any like advancement in player development of the game does, is it empowers the coach to raise their standards to a new level. Because I would love if, every player didn't have to think about anything except the task at hand. That if I'm a hitter, I'm just trying to put the barrel on a good pitch and do damage. If I'm a pitcher, I'm just trying to throw my best pitch to that spot, and I don't have to think about anything. And obviously that's an ideal world, but I would hope that this just empowers coaches just to another level of, I can do something really special with very limited resources, and ideally not have to bombard the player with a ton of information. But I also think that as it trickles down to the lower levels and the youth levels, things become more commonplace and more easily like digestible. That if you had asked a a 9-year-old in 2003 about induced vertical brake, they would have had no idea. But I would bet that most kids in 10-year-old baseball today have seen a TrackMan, have thrown on one at least once, and sort of understand the principles of it. So I think it does take time, but the literacy for these things will increase over time.
All 10-year-olds know the induced vertical brake now. I mean, come
Which
on.
they don't need to. They don't need to.
They do.
But they do.
Yeah, you know why? Because people, it's not only the kids, it's the parents, it's the coaches. Everyone's trying to keep up with everybody, and that's another part of this. When you show up to spring training, I don't know if you're going to be besieged by teammates or coaches, and hey, tell me about your off season. Well, let me tell you about all this stuff, and then because you got to worry about, for you have to worry about throwing strikes, getting guys out. You have to shift gears from your world of being a genius in front of a computer to a genius on the mound. I know that I'm really, really simplifying it, but still.
Yeah, I think that's taken me a long time to figure out. Because I like to think I'm pretty good at each, but I found that I'm at my best on the mound when I really don't let that bleed over. And I would say there are some really productive conversations with teammates. More so just curiosity and asking questions and trying to find the why behind a lot of things. But at the end of the day, there's so many ways to get better, especially with throwing, where it's so unique and everyone moves a bit different. I think there's a really good culture, within the minor leagues, of I'm trying to move up and I'm trying to get better, but I'm more than willing to explain to you why I do something a certain way, which I think is really cool.
So, what's your hobby? I know that. Yeah, this is a very, very surface level question, but I think when it comes to your existence, it might get an interesting answer. Maybe your hobby is, hey, you know what? I'm sitting there all day at Driveline, and I go home and I can't turn my mind off of my hobby is finding the next big thing. Maybe it's cooking. I don't know. What's your hobby?
Yeah, I really like golf.
Okay. Oh, you're a baseball player. It's
it's the natural progression.
Yeah.
But I think I've had very limited opportunity to play it this offseason being up in Seattle. I really enjoy, honestly, any sports played at a high level. I was really into the Australian Open a few weeks ago. Really like F1, amongst other things. I just really like being outdoors too. I was raised camping a lot, hiking. My fun fact is always that I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Whoa!
In Tanzania.
Oh, see, I knew this would So, okay, talk me through that. I mean, you have officially. I'm sorry if I title this podcast "The Most Interesting Man in All Minor League Baseball," but I might have to do that. Tell me what happened. How did you do that? Why did you do that?
Yeah. Me and my dad, after I graduated high school, it was something that had been on his bucket list and wasn't something he was going to do alone. So we went together in 2019, and it was 19,500 feet. It took us 9 days out in Africa. So it was really special. It was really
Did you
cool.
have to do the things like the across the crevasses and on the ladders and all of it seems awful.
I would say fortunately no. It's really just a really long walk uphill.
Oh, really? Okay.
No technical climbing or crampons or ropes or anything.
Okay. But wow, man, I didn't see that on your LinkedIn page. So you gotta update it. Let's go. I mean, are you gonna miss when you do go to spring training, which is a few weeks away? Are you gonna miss this stuff? Are you gonna miss these days? Are you gonna miss the projects that you're working on?
I think being in the office and being in gym is really special. I think just the culture with having athletes in it brings a lot of energy and a lot of almost like purpose to what you're doing, that you can see the people that you're hoping to affect. Fortunately, when I go play, I still work part-time in season,
Okay.
in like a limited hours capacity. So Clayton and I will be continuing our work with like
Man,
a slightly limited output.
man, a part-time job, moonlighting. That's pretty
I
good.
know. I
But
know.
hey, if you're going to revolutionize baseball, you got to keep at it. I feel
Yeah.
like. What is the thing? This is one of the last questions, but what is the thing that you think heading into 2025 that we are going to be looking at as the next game-changing thing? In other words, it wasn't that long ago, as you point out, Hawkeye and TrackMan and all that stuff was fairly new. And when teams showed up at spring training and all of a sudden, wait a second, there's a portable TrackMan at every mound, where a year before there was two in the entire complex. That was a big thing. So in 2025, what do you think is the next big step?
I still think it's, at least for pitchers, it's workload monitoring. I think having guys come into spring training with a proper throwing workload, whether that's just counting throws and intensity or all the way up to like a pulse sensor that you wear on like a sleeve on your elbow. But I think you'll see more and more teams and orgs either recommend or mandate that guys wear these sort of things, that they're monitoring like every day of like how much torque you're putting on your arm speed, and then in season, like trying to avoid these workload spikes that are like very well correlated with injury. Trying to essentially like keep what my arm is used to throwing within a certain range of like what I went out and did this past week.
So you wear a sleeve and you can track that. I know that's very simplistic.
Yes, yeah. So there are a few products out there. The main one that I use is a Driveline product called Pulse. It's just a little sensor that goes in like a sleeve or a strap, and you just wear it when you throw. And at the end of the day, like you get a workload for that day. I can tell, if I was supposed to go at like moderate intensity, if I was putting a little bit too much behind it, or I'm not putting enough. It's really helpful for me of building up ahead of spring training, that I know quantitatively that like I'm prepared to throw live in game twice a week. And then managing in season, even if you choose not to throw it on in game, of like, it's very hard to monitor your catch play pre-game, like 4 hours before the game. That some days I feel really good, I want to make a lot of throws. Some days I don't feel good, I don't want to make any throws. So over the course of a 130, 150, 162 season game, 102 game season, trying to find a way to keep these pitchers healthy, keep their arms ready for the demands that are placed on them, because you don't want to baby them either. I don't think anyone in baseball wants to see starters that put up 120 innings a year. But you also don't want a guy getting TJ. So I think I've seen it with guys that I train, that some orgs, if you don't throw with the sensor on, the coordinator's calling you up the next day. It was like, hey, like, you throwing? Like, where's your stuff? So I think that's going to be, over the next year or two, like a big thing, as rightfully so, the focus has been on like, how do we keep pitchers healthy?
Well, that's what I was going to ask about, how many organizations actually just say across the board, use this thing, use Pulse. Everybody put the sleeve on. Let's go. Because you used it, but are we going to show up at spring training? Are we going to see an entire wave of baseball players on the backfield with all wearing this?
I don't think yet. I think the problem is that spring training, at least for minor leaguers, is so short. I was doing the math the other day. I was like, wow, it's only like 4 weeks. But to like get the tendon and ligament adaptations to like be able to handle that amount of throwing, it takes time. Like a good buildup probably takes, multiple months. And that requires compliance from guys in the off season. And that's a very tall task for directors and coordinators of, okay, we can supply this product, but will this guy that's, in Houston, Texas, that's training at some random facility, is he going to do it? And I don't really know the answer to that.
Well, that's what we're striving for, answers, and you gave a lot of them, including climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, holy mackerel. Pretty good, man. Pretty good. You're on your way. You got a bright future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Just remember us when you're in the majors, telling the pitching coach what's what. So, no, you're doing a great job. It was an honor and privilege to talk to you. And this is what's great. I mentioned the traject machine, and I know that like a year ago, for instance, we had on Matt Strom, and he was the one who told us that baseball was now going to let the hitters use the traject machine during games, and then, which was fascinating. And then you hear more about the traject machine. And I know that that's just one piece of equipment, but this is what we love hearing about. I think that the average baseball fan has to start listening to all this stuff to understand where baseball is going. And so thank you for delivering the information. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't get to do too many of these, and I've found it rare people that can appreciate the two sides of it. So I was happy to come on and talk a bit.
Yeah, this isn't Moneyball. This isn't Scouts versus Stats. No, we're all in this together, right? We're all in this together, and that's what's great about baseball. So, all right, man, get ready. Spring training. Here we go.
Yes, sir.